Hello, I just want to talk. I got another fun bit, okay? Check this out. So, I have a question because I want to do a social study, so I'm going to set this one up. Here's the question. Do I need a law degree to teach law? That's the question that I want to ask, and I'm also going to give you an answer. Okay, but let me set this one up for you really quick, okay? So what's pulling me up off the bench on this one is that I was reading a story the other day that came across my feed, and this is what the story was about. Let me go back to it, right? You're going to see this on the screen. So the story was about attorney discipline, right? And I was like, oh, let's go ahead and check this one out. And this is coming from the State Bar Court of California. And I was like, all right, let's see what they're doing to the attorneys out here in California now, okay? Check this out. It says there was an attorney that was disbarred by the California Supreme Court. And I was like, oh no, what did this attorney do? So then I started to read in this article from the State Bar of California, and it says the California Supreme Court disbarred an attorney today, right? So when they disbar somebody, that means that they're letting them know that they can't do what they were trained to do anymore, right? That's what they're telling this man now, okay? It says this after the State Bar Court Review Department in July 2025 affirmed the findings of the State Bar Court Hearing Department's March 2024 recommendations, which found the lawyer culpable of 10 out of 11 charges for egregious and deceitful conduct and recommended his disbarment, right? So that's what they did it for. They said he had egregious and deceitful conduct, right? So the way that this man was moving was egregious. The way that this man was moving was deceitful. And we were like, those sound like some very interesting terms and conditions. So what do? We built a bit from it, okay? So let's go ahead and check this one out, right? So I wanted to see what egregious means because, sometimes people like to use big fancy words and they just fly over my head. But it's a good thing that I live in the world that we live in now, where I can just hop online and check out a dictionary. Check out what Webster says egregious is. Egregious is, it says from or out or beyond the herd, right? Beyond the herd. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because I'm also part of a herd. I'm one of the sheep of my father's flock. And Jesus Christ, he's the shepherd of me, right? So I get this, right? Okay, let's see what it says. It says one, eminent, remarkable, right? Extraordinary. That's what egregious is. Egregious is eminent. Egregious is remarkable. Egregious is extraordinary. Egregious is distinguished. Okay. That's when we set things apart, right? So when we set things apart, that's what we do. It says, look at what it says. It says, but in this sense, it is seldom applied to persons. And I was like, okay, so when you use egregious in a good way, it's not applied to persons, right? Now check out number 2. It says, in a bad sense, great. In a bad sense, extraordinary. In a bad sense, remarkable. In a bad sense, enormous. As an egregious mistake. What does that mean? That means you made a huge mistake, right? You went way beyond what you were supposed to do. Egregious contempt. In this sense, it is often applied to persons. Oh, I was like, okay. So when you do bad things, right, then they will apply egregious to you. So if you go way beyond your boundaries, then they're saying you're egregious. But you can't apply egregious when you do good things, okay? And we're like, okay, thank you, Webster. So then we said, okay, that's what Webster's saying, but because this man was an attorney, what does the law say, right? What does the law say? So this is how we do it. So we went and we told our agent, we said, agent, bring me back the term egregious from law sources. And this is what my agent brought back to me. They said from Law Cornell. Cornell law says egregious. Egregious is from egregious, meaning illustrious, or literally standing out from the flock. We were like, oh, okay. So you're standing out from the flock. You're set apart, right? So you're being divided from the sheep and the goats. We like this bit right here. Okay, let's keep it going. It says, Egregious is a term used to describe a conduct that is flagrant or outrageous in comparison to a normal standard of conduct. And we were like, oh, okay. So whatever this man's behavior was, it was not normal. It was not a normal standard behavior according to the state bar attorneys of California. And we were like, I wonder who is setting up what is normal conduct, right? What is standard conduct? Okay. Who defines the terms and the conditions of what normal and standard conduct is for bar attorneys? I just want to know. Okay. So I don't feel like reading the rest on that bit right there because they were using other terms and they were using other conditions. Okay, let's keep it going. So this is what they also said on the attorney. They said they found charges of him for egregious, but they also said deceitful conduct, right? So we were like, he was being deceitful. I wonder what that means, right? So what do? We went back online and then we pulled up some terms and some conditions, and deceit is going to take you all the way back to fraud, right? So we checked it out. We checked it out where we said fraud. So fraud is deceit and deceit is fraud, right? It's the same, but different. Okay. And then fraud is also, this is what Webster says. Fraud is also a trick. And we were like, oh, okay. So that's the same thing that the adversary, the subtle, sneaky serpent did way back in the beginning when the serpent crept up on the woman's ear and said, hath God said? That was the first trick. That was the first deceit. That was the first fraud, right? And we were like, okay, because I learned from the Bible because my father's always teaching me his words, okay? So we know what a trick is, and we know what deception is, and we know what deceit is because we know what fraud is because we remember the first fraud that was ever committed to man was by the subtle, sneaky serpent, okay? That's what we know. So what else did I do? I had to hop online and I told my agent, bring me back what the law definition of fraud is, right? So this is what my agent brought me back. This is what Cornell law says, right? Cornell law says fraud is both a civil tort and a criminal wrong, okay? So you can do things in the civil realm and you can also do things in the criminal realm. And tort means to turn and tort means to twist, all right? Check it out. It says in civil litigation, allegations of fraud might be based on a misrepresentation of fact that was either intentional or negligent. Okay. So some people would say that would be fake news. So if you misrepresent something, right? If you say that's not really what it is, but I'm just going to sort of kind of coach you into saying this is what it really is, right? Then you could be misrepresenting something. An example of that would be like telling the people that the government is their master, right? That will be a misrepresentation of the law, right? But a lot of my neighbors don't know this, okay? So let's keep it going. It says, for a statement to be an intentional misrepresentation, the person who made it must either have known the statement was false or been reckless as to its truth, right? So this is why we always like asking simple questions. We always like saying, well, what does the law say? What does that term and what does that condition mean? And can you please cite your sources, right? This is what we love to do, and we just like to keep it super simple. Okay, let's keep it going. It says the speaker must have also intended that the person to whom the statement was made would rely on it. Okay, that's what the speaker is saying, is that you're going to rely on that information that somebody is telling you. An example, again, I'm always going to keep pointing it out, is like the government is the master over the people. That's a false statement. That is misrepresentation. Another misrepresentation will be that your political entities are the leaders of the people. That is also a misrepresentation. They're your servant. All right, let's keep it going. It says the hearer must then have reasonably relied on the promise and also been harmed because of that reliance. All right. So I'm always wondering how many people are harmed because of what they've been told by their political servants. All right. I know for a fact that a lot of people are being harmed right now. So I'm wondering how this attorney harmed whoever it was that he was serving. Okay. I wonder what he was telling them. It says a claim for fraud based on negligent misrepresentation differs in that the speaker of the false statement may have actually believed it to be true. All right. So if somebody's believing what it is that they're saying is true, and then that means that they're being negligent because they might be ignorant. So we know for a fact right now that a lot of our political servants are ignorant of the law because we've been testing them. Right. So I'm wondering how this attorney who was disbarred was being negligent in his practice. Let's keep it going. It says, however, the speaker lacked reasonable grounds for that belief. And then it goes on and says, a promise that goes unfulfilled may give rise to a claim for fraud only under particular circumstances. So I'm wondering sometimes if the people could actually make a claim for a broken promise. Example. So if somebody goes up and then they say, I swear to support and defend the Constitution, right? So help me God. And then when we ask them, hey, do the people have all political power? And then they're like, no, right? We're like, hey, are you interfering with the people's right to keep and bear? And they're like, no, right? And they're like, hey, when I go to the store and I try to buy an arm, they make it very, very difficult for me because of the legislative laws that you've enacted. So again, are you making it difficult for me to do what I need to do? And if they say no, then that means that they're breaking a promise, right? They're breaking a promise because we can clearly see that the legislative laws that some of our servants have made are breaking the Constitution. And we don't like that, okay? But it's also because there's a form of negligence going on because the people that are administering the law don't understand the difference between the people and public servants, right? Because they believe that all the people who are going in and buying goods and services are public servants, which in fact we're not. So I'm not an employee of the government. I'm not a legislative creature. I'm not a statutory entity. I'm one of the people with all political power, and I create government entities, okay? All right, so now that we know what fraud is, right, because fraud and deceit are the same, and now that we know what egregious is, I want to do this social study bit now, so I'm going to wrap this up now. Okay, so here goes the social study. What set this all up for me was, do I need a law degree to teach law? This is what I'm asking, and it's an open statement, because I want to know. I'm going to show you what the answer is, and I'm going to show you where my sources are coming from. But when I say, do I need a law degree to teach law, I'm asking this for a very specific reason, because they disbarred this attorney, and they say you can no longer practice law in the state of California because of your behavior. Right? That's what they told this man. And we were like, wow. So they're going to take money away from this man, and they're going to tell this man that he can no longer earn a living off of his skills. Right? And we don't think that that's fair. So check this out. When I'm doing the social study, right? So this is the social study. This isn't an advice. It says, the Constitution says to the answer, do I need a law degree to teach the law? Check this out. The Constitution says all political power is inherent in the people, full stop. Right? You okay? So all political power is inherent in the people, not our constitutional entities. Okay? Our constitutional entities were created to serve us. If you don't believe me, check this out. It says government is instituted for their protection, security, and benefit, and they have the right to alter or reform it when the public good may require. Right? So if our government entities aren't fulfilling their promises, right, then we can alter it, right? That's what it says right there in the Constitution. All right, so here goes the question again. Do I need a law degree to teach law? From that constitutional provision, no. The other question, or the same question, do I need a law degree to teach the law? I'm going to show you some more evidence right now. It says the people have the right to instruct their representatives, petition government for redress of grievances, and assemble freely to consult for the common good, right? So I can instruct, that means I can teach, and I can show my reps, okay? So my reps are all of the entities that have been created underneath the jurisdiction of the Constitution. I have more political power than you because I have all political power, and our representatives only have a little bit of power, right? You have whatever it was that we gave you, but we get to flex all political power. And it says that I can instruct you, which means that I can teach you. I can form you according to the law. I can also redress. If I have a grievance, like if you're harming me and you're crossing the boundaries, I can redress, right? That means that I can sue you. Okay, that's what that means. I can take it to the court and I can sue you. And it also says that I can assemble freely to consult for the common good. So I don't need a law degree to teach the law, because I can hang out with my neighbors and I can talk with my neighbors and I can show them the law and I can break down the law for them in simplicity. And I love doing it because it's so much fun. All right, because I love to show people how to flex. All right, I love to show people how to use their body. Check this out. It also says the state bar. This is what the Constitution says. It says the state bar of California. Why am I showing you this? Because it was the state bar attorneys who told this man he can no longer practice law in California, right? So I'm showing you where the state bar is relative to the people. It says the state bar of California is a public corporation. A public corporation means it's subject to me, one of the people, because it was created to serve me, one of the people. So the state bar of California, being a public corporation, is here to protect the consumer, right? I'm not a consumer. I control my consumer, right? I control my consumer because I'm one of the people with all political power. Check this out. It says every person, all right? I'm not a person. I'm one of the people with all political power. I have a person that I speak through who represents me, right? But that person is not me. I control the person, okay? I control the mask. Check this out. It says every person admitted and licensed to practice law in the state of in this state is and shall be a member of the state bar, except while holding office as a judge of a court of record, right? So do you see what it says? It says every person admitted and licensed to practice law. So a license is not a right. A license is a privilege to do something, right? So I have a right to instruct, right? It's not a privilege, it's a right. So I can instruct all my neighbors all day, all night, and no government entity can stop me. No state bar entity can stop me. So if this man were wise, right, then he would go back to his constitution and he would still be teaching his neighbors the law and he would still be doing what he needs to do, right? But what he can't do is that he can't go into the court and say, I represent my client, right? You know, he can't do that anymore as a practicing attorney because he can no longer work as an attorney because he's lost the privilege to have a bar card from the state, from the public corporation called the Bar Association. All right. Remember that. OK, it's a public corporation. It's not a private entity. It's controlled by the people. Once you understand this, you're going to be cool. OK, my neighbor. And we got one more question. How do you teach your agents the law? This is just a question that I want to know with all my neighbors. I want to know, how do they teach their agents the law? You know, any agent would be any entity that represents you, right? You know, so we want to know, how do you teach them the law? Do you even teach them the law, or do you let somebody else teach them the law? And whoever's teaching them the law, who teaches them the law, right? This is what we want to know. Okay, my neighbor? All right, I'm done with that bit. Let's go ahead and walk it back up. So I just wanted to show you what the state bar is. It's a public corporation. And then I wanted to show you that the people have the right to instruct all entities, right? And then I wanted to show you that the people have all political power. Why? Because the people, we don't need a law degree to teach the law. We can teach the law because we wrote the law. Okay, my neighbor? All right, so I'm done with that bit. And then I wanted to show you what fraud is. And then I wanted to show you what egregious behavior is, because I wanted to show you how government entities cause harm to other people sometimes by taking away their ability to eat. Right? They take away their ability to eat under the public record or within the public realm by saying you can no longer practice what you were trained to do because we're going to take away that privilege from you. But they can never take away your constitutional rights. So if you know what you know, and if you can teach what you can teach, you can always earn, right? You just have to find the right people who are going to hang out with you and give you what you would call funds. All right, my neighbor? All right, we're done. That one's off my heart now, and it's off my chest. I'm going to put this together. I'm going to upload it. I'm going to see how it flows. I'll talk to you guys in the future. Remember, nobody's having more fun than us. Bye.